Hey guys, welcome to BALLBUSTERS. If you'd like to support this channel, there are PayPal and Patreon links in the info box below. We got a great show lined up for you today. And chock full of BALLBUSTERs. BALLBUSTERs, sound off.
Hooray, BALLBUSTERS! Actually, just you and me.
Yeah, that's sweet, man. Yeah, the BALLBUSTERs have, I'll tell you what, when they go on vacations, they go on power vacations, dude. They just don't come back. Sweet deal. Go ahead.
Hello.
Oh,
Good evening.
There's one who just tripped right through the threshold. What's up, Arwen?
Yeah, I was kind of watching Owen Benjamin, and then I noticed, oh wait, it's BALLBUSTERS Live, apparently. Hi, here I am.
Oh, thanks, man. So BALLBUSTERS is just one rung more important or less important than BALLBUSTERS?
It's a Bertaria revolution, man.
How's that old coot doing?
He's doing great. He's crushing it. Gravy every time. So yeah, I'm enjoying it a lot. It's kind of hard to step away. He's in a real role, but oh well.
He's doing Patreon is what he's doing.
And won.
Has he won?
Yeah.
I did not know that. Oh, wow.
Yeah,
No, I knew he was doing them. I didn't know he'd won.
Yeah, I did.
Won what?
Shout out to Christorus Fight the Good Fight, who says, pull my finger, and it's $5. Thank you very much for the super chat.
Oh, let me check that. Yep.
Just pull my finger.
Go ahead. What were you saying before about, I didn't catch, you said something about Patreon?
Yeah, Owen Benjamin had sued Patreon because they were basically holding back money and blocked the whole situation for no good reason, because he technically didn't break any rules that are part of signing up with that. And he sued him, and yeah, he won. He did.
Cool.
I'm pretty sure he did.
Yep.
They changed the contract with him after the fact. So I got sent a sort of expose on it by Paula, a Bible literalist, and it basically explained how they were going to be coming to the table with dirty hands. No other way of describing it.
What, they violated their own terms of service?
Yes,
yeah,
they did.
Changed them. They changed them after the fact in a really weaselly way.
Huh. I was unaware of that.
Shout out to Owen Benjamin. Good on you, my friend. Get to him. Also, be sure to support QE on Patreon.
That's right. Those links are in the info box below. And it's really cool. I know this is cardinal sin never to talk about admin, but the new studio's up in YouTube, and I think I might like this. We'll see how it goes, but it's looking good so far.
No,
Say again.
Sorry, I said everything looks fluid on the YouTube stream, so.
Yep, they just changed it up, and they had to force me to do it. So when they force you to do something, you got to learn it quick, and it worked out well. So we can drop the.
You mean starting up a show?
Say again?
You mean starting up a show, right?
Yes. Starting up.
Yeah, I had the same issue. I had the same issue a while back. Really annoying. Now I can't set a show like, oh, we're about to start in 30 minutes or whatever, and then people can get in chat. No, I just have to say go now, and that's the first time that the chat opens. Well, because the old way doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, it does. I can help you with that, because there's a certain thing you have to do to not live stream. Go ahead and premiere a show. There's a certain way you got to do it, but it's easy, man. I'll show you how to do it. I did it today. So
this show is
premiere what? But I do live streams only, so.
Yeah, this show is scheduled, so people saw it. I know exactly what you're saying, Aaron. It's the reason I haven't done it, but obviously QE knew how to do it because this was scheduled and has gone live. But I know what you're talking about. That's why I gave up on it. I'm still using Classic. Let's move on. This is boring.
Right. Yeah. I knew it was gonna get to you, man. Yeah. I was just ticking down the seconds. I love it. Yeah. So what's been going on in the arena? Oh, no, not the specific arena, because there's been a lot going on there. But in the community, anything?
It's business as usual. I can't think of anything out of the ordinary recently. Anything for you, Owen?
Oh, anything new special? No, not really. There's still a little gloaty over Friday's show with Fight the Flat Earth just making himself to a complete ass. Like, it's like every time you think that the ballers can't get any more stupid, they always prove you wrong. And that was Friday.
What is it, like hold my beer?
Now, gravity causes the force of gravity. Come on.
Yeah, somebody hold his beer. Now, I didn't listen to it live, but I got into it after the fact. And I'll tell you what, that was a very sorry display. Fight the tight shirt, I'd have to say, but not unexpected. That was a really good one. I think one of my favorite ones was gravity causes a force, and that force is an emergent force, and then forced to tell us what that force was. It was gravity. So gravity causes the gravity force. Thanks. We appreciate that. Clown.
That was down to Chocolate. That was all credit to Chocolate.
Yep.
Yeah, that was the best moment, and all credit to Chocolate for having the best moment of the discussion on Flat Earth debate. But absolutely, Chocolate had him against the wall. He's like, hold on, emergent force. Do you want to cite that for us? What do you mean emergent force? So the gravity is causing the force of what? What's the force it's causing? Gravity. So gravity, the force of non-force of gravity is causing the force of gravity, apparently, according to Craig.
Yes, sir. That was just one that stood out. There were many's. What I've been finding, not that this is new development, but they don't answer the exact question that's asked to them. They answer the question that they want to answer.
What are you saying, that ballers don't answer questions?
They don't answer the specific. They've been doing it for a long time now, but it's really starting to come to the forefront. Last night, it was a perfect example. I pinned Negator in the arena, right? After years, he's been around for years, and he's currently popped back up on the scene. It went bad for him, man. But it's not only him, because Fight the Tight Shirt was doing it to Nathan. He wouldn't answer the simple. Now, these aren't difficult questions. These are really poignant, real simple questions, and they'll answer the question that they want to answer. It seems that, though, they have a script, and if you just go off the script just a little bit, maybe a different angle on a subject, they can't do anything. They're lost. That's a tell, friends, that you don't know what you're talking about. You're a Dunning-Kruger Muppet. Just saying.
Yeah, surface level understanding of the topics that they're covering, for instance, geodesic surveying. Again, this was Brian having him over a barrel. Over his understanding of what a tangent plane is. So he was asked a direct question, will they be using a tangent plane? He didn't know what that meant. Like, well, they're measuring elevations. Yeah, on a tangent plane? Do you understand the question? He didn't, because he didn't know what the hell I was on about.
Yes, sir. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Loving it.
Yeah, which was great, because it meant later on, when he finally got to the point that he's saying, well, they're measuring a tangent. It's like, yeah, that's the whole point. But when it came to me asking him earlier, 20 minutes earlier, if they're measuring a tangent plane, he obfuscated, wouldn't answer, kept telling me that they're measuring elevation. Till he's held over a barrel about the fact that they're measuring a presupposed tangent, i.e. a curved surface, they're assuming. That would be the tangent plane that he obfuscated. Anyway, yeah, they answer the question they want to answer.
Exactly. He did it a number of times on that specific talk with the tangent. Yeah, 4 times by my count. Yes, sir. I was loving it, man. It was a great hangout.
Yeah, I'd like to learn about this, this non-straight line geometry that the ballers seem to be forwarding these days. Like, oh, this special geometry where every line is curved. Like, where can I find material about this? About how to learn about the non-straight line geometry that they're using?
I'll give you the answer. The commenters often cite this piece of wiki which describes multiple circles intersecting. Therefore, they have multiple tangents. And they'll cite this to say that a curve can intersect a curve and call it a tangent. But all they're describing is multiple circles, and they've all got individual tangent points, i.e. straight lines meeting them. They just try and sort of brush away from the fact that they haven't got any straight lines anymore to get around the black swan. They're saying, well, obviously, we haven't got any straight lines to the horizon. It's all refracted. Well, therefore, you haven't got any straight lines, and your geometry is based on having a tangent.
Yes, sir. Shout out to Unitox Femu. Super chat. I want to see science saying something hilarious. Yeah, I do too. I want to see those vocal cords, lips, aerobic respiration. I want to actually see him do it. Yeah. Good one on you, sir.
In case you didn't catch the subtlety of QE's joke, that would be to imply that to have science speak would be a reification fallacy. It doesn't have lips or vocal cords or lungs to produce sound. It's a method. So thanks, Unitox Femi. I'm sure you understand that implicitly. In fact, I know you do.
Yeah, he does. It's been going on. People make that mistake now all the time. It's not. They're not thinking, and it's not only the baltards. It's some flat earthers. They keep on doing it. I don't understand why you haven't gotten this by now. That's a reification.
It's been woven.
Go ahead.
Woven into the rhetoric. So the pretender clowns that the heliocentric model look upon as their priests would state that science has proven their globe. Now, just that statement in itself is to reify the science into an entity that can prove something that isn't capable of being put through the scientific method in the first instance. The pseudoscience pretender clowns hijack science and make the world at large think that science is something that it's not. It doesn't have lips. It can't talk. It's not the opinion of consensus. I mean, that's what this show's all about, right? This part 3 is going to be all about exactly that.
Part of it
remember
is,
the body of science, like the belly and the man boobs. You know, pretty fat and bloated.
I didn't get that. Thanks. Yeah, sir. What are you gonna do? Gonna have to put up with them. But they're really circling the drain now, because it seems like the noose is getting tighter and tighter and tighter. It just appears that way to me, and they're like running around like roaches when the lights come on.
Yeah, that's how I think we've got the PhDs. They've only come in the recent past. Wouldn't you agree? We've had not a deluge, but more PhDs than we typically get coming and trying to fight the corner of heliocentrism and getting very angry about it.
Well, they seem to be pushed towards the trenches more than usual this year. I agree.
Yeah, towards us. Yeah, exactly. Us specifically. The trenches being this and flat Earth debate and various other the arena.
Yep.
Shout out again to Super Chat Unitox Femu. Yes, who is faking science? I almost died yesterday. Was that on your show? Who's faking?
Faking science?
Who's faking
science?
Who's
faking science? Well, anybody who's claiming heliocentrism, all of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, and astrophysics, they're all faking science, if they're stating it. Sometimes it's by implication, though. So you've got good magicians like Neil deGrasse Tyson who'll make declarations that are absolutely correct. Science is true whether you like it or not. That's true. Paraphrasing, but that's a true statement. But he's not a scientist, and he's not doing any science. He stands there with his sun and moon waistcoat looking like a magician, tells you all about the wonders of the universe. Well, none of that's been scientifically validated in any way, shape, or form, but by implication, he's making out that he's a scientist, and what he says goes.
Yes, sir.
Right. He introduces a true statement about science and then continues his nonsensical religious story.
Oh, I forgot the surprise email I got 2 days ago. The total shock. I have had a notification. I said, I hardly ever go into that email and look at those emails. I just don't do it because I'm usually busy inside another program. But I said, what the heck? Let me go over here and check who it is. Guess who it was?
Danny Faulkner.
It was Dr. Danny Faulkner. Yes, it was. I was shocked. Yep, because he had my email from 2016. Remember, I told you that I confronted him on email all that time ago, right? And after our little, his thrashing, I never heard from him. Next time I heard from him was 2 days ago in an email. One simple question he asked me. Should I tell him?
Yeah.
Well, the question to me isn't a shock. The fact that he got in touch is a shock, but the question isn't a shock, particularly knowing Danny Faulkner in that sense.
So the question was, do you believe that science can be conducted only through experimentation? From Dr. Danny Faulkner, astronomer, research division.
That's the question again. Hold on, don't give me the answer. Let's just do a quick straw poll. We've got about 60 people watching. I'd be intrigued to know from the chat how many people get this right. So ask the question again and then give like number 1 as a yes and number 2 as a no as an option. We'll just straw poll the audience, just see how well they get on. Okay. It's an obvious answer in my opinion, but I might be wrong.
So, question from Dr. Danny Faulkner. Do you believe that science can be conducted only through experimentation is the question.
If you think science can only be conducted through the method of experimentation, then type 1. If you think that it can be performed through other methods other than experiment, because that's the only stipulation in his email, then type 2. If it needs experiment, 1. If it doesn't, 2. Let's see how you get on in the audience. We'll have a quick so far, a few ones.
No 2 so far.
No 2s, all 1s. So far, everybody in the audience knows the right answer. Danny.
Oh, Danny boy. By the way, if anyone listens to the arena, that is the first question that comes out against every single person that comes in. 1v1. My claim or my contention is that your science acumen is below a third grader. My question, can you conduct natural science without experiment? That's the question.
Shout out to Dr. John D. Check out Dr. John D's latest video. Very comprehensive video that he's just recently released in the last couple of days. Excellent work, Dr. John D. He says, 1, you can think of it to be any number.
Oh, you mean the video narrated by Karen B?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, Karen B's also mirrored it.
Very good video. Very good. I watched the whole thing.
Covers Black Swan in immense detail, but also goes on to detail how you cannot have mirage that they claim unless you've got direct line of sight with the original object that you are viewing. Therefore, if you have an inferior or superior mirage, you must have line of sight with the thing that you're looking at. He also goes into, when he first showed me this, I was like, I don't like this. But what Dr. John D likes to do is give the opposing potential argument, however obscure that may be. His detail was to include a kind of angular resolution limitation in the thing that's actually the object that's above the horizon, in order for it to still conform to their potential Weasley get out. But he even included that. But it was just epic work. He's just so comprehensive in that particular video about the Black Swan, and he's got new examples in there again that I think I can't remember the exact distances. It seemed speculatively like the horizon was at 16 miles, and he's got these wind turbines between 8 and 13 off the top of my head, and you can see the base of them with the high and low tide mark on them, and then boats beyond them with the horizon beyond them. Right. Like it's like a triple whammy Black Swan. Absolutely epic.
Yes, sir.
Just a quick shout out to Rob Kiln. He says, if it disagrees with experiment, it's wrong. Dr. Feynman. Spot on.
Yeah,
Yep.
and another
I
one
posted
by...
the link to the. Oh, sorry. I posted the link to the Karen B video in the chat, by the way. Sorry, the John D video with Karen B as a narrator.
And another shout out to Unitalks Femu, another super chat. Best quote, science says. Says what? That's right. Thanks a lot, Unitalks Femu.
Yeah, great work, Dr. John D. Be sure to check out his video, give it a like. Although you can't, he turns off comments on his channel, so you can't give it a like.
You can still give it a like, but you won't see the numbers. That's all.
Can still like it, but yeah, it doesn't show up.
All right, let's.
Good stuff. Any other ballbusters in yet? No, it's still just us. A few of the guests. So should we require them in the presentation?
Like I said, they're doing power vacations, man. It's that time of year. I think over the next 2 weeks, that'll be more or less it. People will be everyone will be back, hopefully. It's gonna be.
They better show up next month.
Yeah.
Or else.
Vacation's over, ballbusters. You need to be here.
Mike.
Go ahead.
I was just telling Arwen, don't eat your mic.
Oh, sorry, getting too close.
Getting a bit enthusiastic. It's all good. Anything else? Any other Flat Earth events, happenings in the last couple of weeks?
The beautiful Betty Van Velsen, she's been on permanent vacation, it seems like, for the past... I'll tell you what, you Europeans, that's what I'm saying. You guys take power vacation, power holidays. You just go and don't come back. How you guys do that?
I haven't had a holiday in quite a long time.
Me neither. There's a big one coming up, U.S. holiday. So there's a big one coming up in about, I think, another week or so. What do we got here? 8/29 Labor Day.
Bank holiday weekend here in Britain. So
when?
This weekend. So it's bank holiday weekend.
Oh, it is a bank holiday. Okay. Why do they need holidays, dude?
I don't know.
They're tired of stealing all your money.
When it all goes to AI, they won't have holidays then.
Yeah. Oh man. I don't know.
Oh, this is not recorded, DJ Black. This is live.
Yes, this is live. What would it matter if it was recorded? I don't understand that. Not
because I couldn't respond to DJ Black like I just have if it wasn't live.
Yeah, this is what I want to know, because people always ask that. They say, "Well, is this live?" Like, I don't know what if this was. Let's say we recorded this 2 hours ago. Would that make a difference?
Yeah, because it's all kind of said and done. There's no way that your head can explode whilst they're watching, for example. That might happen, right? And if it's live, there's no predicting what could happen any second. Arwen's head could explode live.
No, it can't.
On air.
No.
But
that's
does
gonna
it
happen?
But does it matter?
You say no.
Go ahead.
Stop
I said you say no, but there's got to be a micromorph in this. So I'm sure that if a live cable fell from the ceiling, there's all sorts of dangerous things that could happen, Arwen. You just don't know.
Hanging on the ceiling. Never mind. Yeah, but anyway.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm looking at this Ballbusters live stream chat of somebody who's actually in here with mute on, and they're just he's addressing me. No flat earthers will ever be able to address neutrinos. Like, what?
Neutrinos?
Yeah.
What about them?
So the fact you people don't even mention them kind of proves my point about your motives.
Well, we don't talk too much. We don't talk too much about spontaneous parametric down conversion either. I bet you don't speak too much to that. No ballers do that. I wonder why. You're suspect.
He's got this lovely model picture posted above there with a presupposed spherical Earth side view, the infamous orthographic view, showing how neutrino beams fire through the Earth and then are caught because of the curve of it's.
Oh, jeez.
Sorry for wasting your time.
Yeah, that's a waste of time.
Any idea? Oh, I have no idea. I know what they say neutrinos are, but I've not looked into neutrinos. Are they real? Are they made uppy?
Are they made uppy?
It sounds like what is it? Yeah, subatomic. Most of it is all derived from divination processes of looking at scratchy lines as the end result of a cyclotron. So,
Yeah,
I suppose they're flying through us all day long, right? But I don't know if it's true or not.
Yeah, who really cares? Let's see.
Prove or disprove anything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's just a waste of time. Get yourself away from that black swan, boy. All right.
Right. Well, they're going underground now. If you can't see the globe on the surface because of the black swan, you can't see it too far. Then you're just gonna have to presuppose a side view and then go underground with neutrino beams, and that might prove it. Ugh.
Yeah, those neutrinos aren't going to save you from the black swan or gas pressure without a container. You're not safe. So you can stick to your neutrinos. Give them a big hug for us because you're done. It's over. It's been over since about the beginning of 2015. And that's that.
Oh.
2020 black swan.
Science then. Ear review. Lips and lungs, which science doesn't have.
All right.
Do we get on with the presentation?
Yeah, I think so. We'll go through it. We'll see how it goes. Yeah. All right. Mike, discipline, please. So this is the Master of Science, Part 3. Of course, we're going to go over the actual point of this. The scientific method. What a shocking surprise. So what I did right here is I highlighted the big 3 in the scientific method just for a review. Not that the others aren't important, right? But without the big 3, you don't have the scientific method. Ergo, you don't have science, natural science. They are: step 1, observe a phenomena, natural type, 1 each. Step 2, literature review. Step 3, construct a formal hypothesis. Step 4, test or experiment. Step 5, analyze data. Step 6, validate or invalidate the hypothesis. And step 7, report results. Simple as that, folks. Like I said, the administrative and logistical steps are added here. They're smaller. It's not that they're not important. But like I said, you cannot have science, natural science, without number 1, number 3, and number 4. Can't have it. You can flower it up. You can change the steps right here. Number 2, I don't see how you'd change number 2 to anything other than number 2, a literature review, to make sure that you have all the information you can on the topic, all the research. You could stuff some other steps in here, like delivering flowers, like I said, but you ain't getting around it. Without these 3, you don't have science, period, end of story. Peer review. This is a pretty important topic. I find a lot of people don't even know what this is. I don't know. They think that all your buddies get together, or people in the scientific community review the literature and they, send an email and say, yeah, I agree. That's not peer review. That's not, that's preposterous, right? So what peer review is there's certain professionals, what they call referees, at all of these publishing houses, Nature, Science, you name it, that are peer-reviewed journals. That's the name of them, right? So what they have is they have subject matter experts, and I use that term as loosely as possible, that are hired by the publishing agencies that sit right below the editor. And what you do, if you have some scientific quote-unquote study for those journals, you send it on in, and they go right to the referees. And what the referees do in that particular discipline is they'll go through and they sit there with a highlighter. And if they see something that they don't like, well, they highlight that stuff. And at the end of the process, all the highlights go back to you for correction. And then you send the paper back, or they send you a message and say, no, we're not interested. Because the peer reviewers, the referees, send it up to the editor. He has the final say-so. That is peer review. But peer review is the antithesis of actual science. I don't know. Let's go up here. Do you see a peer review step in the scientific method? The closest you get is step number 7. You report results, but you're just reporting those results. That's where it ends. It stops right there. There's a big fat period right there. Peer review probably happens after that in the secular community, but the scientific method stops right there. Like I said, peer review is the antithesis of actual science. Number 1, like I said, show the peer review step in the scientific method. Triple dog dare you. You ain't going to because it's not there. Number 2, and most importantly, the scientific method was created to rid the landscape of bias. That is, the loudest voices, ruling class, majority, votes, consensus, opinions, etc. The subjective, by instituting a method solely focused on the objective, the empirical, that is, observable, testable, repeatable, falsifiable. That's the entire goal and the summary of the scientific method. But the spinning space monkeys mindlessly appeal to it because it's the only way to get their fairy tales into the mix, whereby bastardizing it. So when you hear somebody say peer review, get ready because you're about to get screwed, is what I'm trying to say. Even the professional, even the scientists know this. They all know it. I don't know. When I finally figured it out, I guess I was a freshman at university when I finally realized it, right? That this is a joke. Number 3, Catholic priests have also been banking on their internal peer review for centuries. Ball-tard science, that is religion, has much in common with theirs, if you catch my drift. So let's hear some of these professionals. From Richard Smith, MD, former editor of the British Medical Journal. This one has a big impact factor, folks. If you know what I mean. You probably don't. He's claimed that peer review is, follow this, ineffective, largely a lottery, anti-innovatory, slow, expensive, wasteful of scientific time, inefficient, easily abused, prone to bias, unable to detect fraud, and irrelevant. I don't know. I don't know if that's a shining cosign for that one. Do you? This is one of my favorites right here. I can go on for days with these. I just picked out my favorites. So this is Goodstein. Conduct and Misconduct in Science, Caltech, 2002. Editors of scientific journals and program officers at the funding agencies have the most to gain from peer review, and they steadfastly refuse to believe that anything might be wrong with the system. Their jobs are made easier because they have never had to take responsibility for decisions. They are also never called to account for their choice of referees, who in any case always have the proper credentials. Since the referees perform a professional service almost always without pay, the primary responsibility of the editor or program officer is to protect the referee. Thus, referees are never called to account for what they write in their reviews. As a result, referees are able, with relative impunity, to delay or deny funding or publication to their rivals. When misconduct of this kind occurs, it is the referee who is guilty, but it is the editors and program officers who are responsible for propagating a corrupt system that makes misconduct almost inevitable. This kind of misconduct, that is, fear, rampant in all fields of science, not only biomedical science. Recently, as a part of a talk to a large audience of mostly young researchers at an extremely prestigious university, I outlined this analysis of the crisis of peer review. The moderator, a famous senior scientist, was incredulous. He asked the audience how many disagreed with my heresy. No one responded. Then he asked how many agreed. Every hand in the house went up. Duh! I mean, everyone knows this, that it is corrupt.
Man, that almost sounds like a conspiracy. I'm not even joking.
Well, this is the good old boy network, the
Right.
referees.
Well, that is a conspiracy, right?
Yep.
They're conspiring to basically dilapidate science.
Yeah,
and turn it into a guild situation.
Yeah, if you send in a paper that doesn't agree with their worldview, right, you're not getting published. It ain't happening, right? And then, like he said, any of your competitors, any of the referees, any of their fellow quote-unquote scientists, they can just hold back publishing it, holding back funding, and it's pretty damn funny what's going on here. That's how it can get real bad.
I don't know. I don't think it's that funny. It's more horrific, really. It's just the capping off science. Just monopoly.
Go ahead.
Scheduled discussion point, or is there more? I'd make a point here or not?
I'm just about done with this, and we'll stop because this is pretty important. So I'll continue right here. From On the Nature of Science, from Courtney, graduates of Harvard, by the way, her and her husband. The author describes the three-legged stool of scientific error correction as experimental care, reproducible experiment, and peer review. Like Occam's razor, peer review is a temporal expedient for judging scientific work at any given time. Peer review serves the temporal interest of publishers, funding agencies, and employers. Listen up. The ultimate arbiter of scientific validity is repeatable experiment alone. Period. End of story. The only aspect that should be expertly reviewed should be whether or not the researchers followed the scientific method. It should be positioned right above the abstract. Right like this. Observe, you don't have to put everything in here, just the big three. Observe natural phenomena, that's going to give you your dependent variable. Your hypothesis, that's going to contain the independent variable and the tester experiment. It could just be a short little blurb before you get to methods and materials section, right? That should be listed above to make it easy. And everyone knows we're talking about science here, not philosophy or fairy tale religion. If they're not listed or are incoherent, then hasta la vista, baby. That's how we clean this mess up. Of course, then, NCBI database, any other databases, Google Scholar, will have like 3 or 4 studies in it. Astronomy, astrophysics, and cosmology, and theoretical physics will take their rightful place at the bottom of the sci-fi section. Paleontology, archaeology, anthropology, geology will take their rightful place besides photography and bag of hammers observations with accompanying pontiff declarations. And evolution will take its rightful place in religious studies, myths and fairy tales, just below Humpty Dumpty. Will people lose their jobs? Yep. But hey, we still need people to pick up trash. And to wrap up this little fiasco, a study done by Wharton School, University of Pennsylvania, Professor J. Scott Armstrong, 2017. You don't need it. You don't need this. You can do it yourself. Just randomly pick papers from those databases. They found that fewer than 1% of papers in those scientific journals follow the scientific method. What a joke. Questions, comments, concerns?
It seems like an inversion. So it's so common when we have things like the gas pressure without a container, they'll ask us for our dome, or when it comes to their Earth curve edge that they don't have, they'll ask us for our flat Earth edge, the pancake in the Flat Earth Society narrative. So they just invert things that are a big problem. It seems like exactly that. So you look at something that's a bit of an issue, science stands in complete opposition of peer review. It's the antithesis of peer review. It's designed to do away with the type of mess that you describe it as that we have currently. When you say we're going to do away with the mess by pointing out that you need to adhere to the scientific method to be science, well, that mess has been created by people who've looked at science and said, okay, science does away with us just making up a story and people believe in us. I know what I'll do. I'll call our stories science. That'll solve the problem. They've just taken it and bastardized it into they're just so stories rather than panicking about the fact that it basically does away with anybody's ability to just make up stories and say that they're true because it's an empirical method. Well, why not just take the power that the empirical method offers, teach it to kids at a really early age, and then call everything that I make up on the spot science? That'll work beautifully. And that's precisely what they've done.
Yes, they've culturally appropriated science. Yeah, they did. Think about it carefully. They did exactly that. They took a method that's very defined, very clear, very restricted, and then made it into a cultural phenomena that they claimed of their own. That's what cultural appropriation is.
It's worthy of a word of warning to our own side. So I have to name names because it's somebody that people will know. Jaron, in the past, although this isn't necessarily true now, would talk about science being wrong and how we need to go after science and show that science has lied to us. And that isn't the case at all. Science is an empirical method of establishing cause of natural phenomena. It's as simple as that. It's very narrow, very specific. And that method hasn't done anything to anybody. It can't. It's a method. Right? It hasn't lied to you. It can't lie. It's just a method. Whether or not the people who use the word science have actually adhered to the method is a different story. The people who proclaim science and haven't adhered to the method are liars. They don't actually have science. Now, that doesn't make science our enemy. It makes the people who've hijacked it to lend credence to their just so stories, it makes them pseudo-scientists. The textbook definition being somebody who hasn't actually adhered to the scientific method when declaring science. By appropriation, if you will, of this term, science, they lend credence to just so stories when they don't have any empirical validity. And where do you get empirical validity from? Well, from experimentation. That's what you must have. Peer review, not consensus, not the loudest voice. Empiricism through the method that they're claiming when they use the word. As soon as they say that word, then they must have scientific validity to their statement. That would be an experiment, a validated experiment, where they've established cause. None of them have got it. Like you say, it's like 99% of everything that's entered into these journals hasn't adhered to the method. Now, if you're going to have that pointed out and you're one of the people, like Neil deGrasse Tyson, let's hold him to account. Why not? He's the high priest of this nonsense in terms of astrophysics. If you're going to tell people that science is right whether you like it or not, then you better bloody have some. And just point at a light in the sky and tell us all about how it's a supernova. Because that kind of nonsense isn't backed by science. Yet it'll form the fundamental basis of the majority of the Western world's overview of their existence. And what's it based on? Just so stories. What do they say those just stories are? Science? No, they're not. It makes them, the individuals who hijack the term, the enemy, not science. To make science the enemy would be to reify science into an entity that you can attack because it's lied to you, and it can't. It's just a method.
Right, and that makes it the difference between cultural adoption, where you actually honor the original roots of a concept you adopt into your culture, into a cultural appropriation, where you graft it in and then manipulate it. You know, that's what that is. You basically disrespect the origin by manipulating it and then dishonoring the origin. That, you know, it's been so convoluted by the whole SJW nonsense going out there, but this is real cultural appropriation. Disrespecting the original meaning and manipulating it for your own personal cultural causes.
And the irony of that, Arwin, is that the whole purpose of the method was to do away with the consensus view and the loudest voice. Yet they've appropriated the very thing that's supposed to do away with it to lend credence to the stories. How ironic.
Exactly. And it's very devious. And it's very smart, you know? Most people didn't see this coming. This just happened to us all over the decades. It just happened. We didn't see it coming.
I didn't see it coming. I would have been one of those people that declared science when I see tire tests. You know, until QE pointed it out to me, I hadn't got the vaguest clue. I was colloquially using the term science like everybody else.
Yeah, me too. I thought that science was just the gathering of knowledge. That's how I saw it, really, because that's how everyone else kept talking about it.
Isn't it just good old fraud?
Yes, it is. Yes.
Yeah.
Good point. Absolutely. It might be loosely defined as pseudoscience, and you can say, well, you're then meeting the definition of science. But by proclaiming something which you've not got to lend credence to something that is not true, that is fraud.
Yes, sir. Simply. And a barrier to entry. Right?
Right.
They
And it slipped past us. It slipped past everyone because we just trusted the authority of knowledge in this case. We trusted that the people that had all this knowledge would be able to manage it and prevent corruption. Well, they blatantly didn't, because they completely warped the original meaning and turned it into this cult.
Yeah, but it slipped by the layman because, yeah, they're not keeping their eye on the ball. That's no problem. But we're talking about actual scientists that know this, that it is a fraud. Everyone knows this. I mean, that can fog a mirror that's in actual science. They already know this. Like the gentleman was saying, Dr. Goodstein at Caltech. Everyone, he said every hand in the house went up because they know it. So this goes much, much deeper when people know something and they don't do anything about it. Oh?
Yeah, well, some of them who are utilizing this magic trick get very angry. They're the PhDs I mentioned earlier. They're the people that very quickly recognize that if our voices are heard in terms of this particular aspect of the scientific hijacking that the pseudoscience priests of heliocentrism are utilizing, they'll lose some power. Because by having a peer-reviewed published document and saying science, the word science, a lot, people respected these PhDs and took what they said as read. Oh, well, if you say it, Mr. Scientist, then it must be so. Well, that's all lost upon communicating this information of the fraud that is the pseudoscience, that is the narrative behind heliocentrism. Anybody making declarations in that regard is suddenly deemed a fraud. And not only will they be deemed frauds from now on by us, people who recognise them as frauds will no longer respect what they say. Well, that's very bad news. Worthy of fighting, right? And that's precisely what they're doing.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we all together kind of let it slip by because we just thought, no, things will be all right. We can handle them just fooling around a little, getting a little off track. We'll be okay. Well, over the decades, yeah, all that little, it'll be all right, kind of turned into, the whole mindset of how people are being taught, what the general public is saying, and it's all been warped now because of that, because we just slowly over the generations kind of let it slip. We didn't realize how important it is to basically realize the foundations and then not be fooled by authorities, people in authority positions, to let it slip, that it's okay to let it slip.
Yeah, but
it's not.
Listen, this is one of the issues, probably the main issue, right, of how we got here in the first place, because they're using their means and their venues to push their fairy tale pseudoscience as science, and that's how we got into this mess, and which keeps us in this mess. That's what it is. So if we fix that, then it all ends. But I don't think it can be fixed now because, like I said, they just drown out the people like me, other people that speak up because they have, and they know this, they have the masses, right? I'm barely palpable background noise. They just sit back, kick their feet up, light their stogies because no one's going to hear me. Right. And when they do hear me, I'm drowned out by friggin' crayon munching retards, the masses of them. Right. So,
right. We're trying to drain the swamp with one pump, but at the same time, all that money is paying for pumps to pump water right back into the swamp.
Exactly. You got it. Yep.
I don't like to look at it in that's a very pessimistic way of looking at it. You do have an audience. There's people watching right now, and it's very much relatable to current events, current affairs. So for anybody watching this later or after the fact, it's currently August 2020. People can picture the current events of the day, which I'm not going to mention specifically, and you'll understand why. If the wider audience, and I know this is true, they've all voted one when Annie Faulkner's email was read out earlier, recognise where a mathematical application of, say, some statistics about a current event were being claimed to be science, and you as an individual watching recognised instantly that it wasn't science, well, then you wouldn't necessarily have a certain magic trick work on you now, would you? Well, that's very relevant to everybody watching. Now, barely palpable background noise in terms of the bigger picture and whether or not you're going to change the overall magic that's used to turn statistics and measurements, true or not true, into science that you need to be worried about, right? Well, I'm not worried. Are you worried, QE?
Not at all.
Right. And that's because you recognise where we have established cause and effect, validity, empiricism, and where we have maths.
Yes, sir. We ready to roll?
Yeah.
Indeed.
Mic discipline, please. So we're gonna go for the typical baller parrots. I'm sure you've heard these many, many times. We'll go through each of them. Science never proves things. Science is self-correcting. Science is always changing. Oh, it's evolving. Why do they say, aka mindlessly parrot, these belly-laughing fallacious train wrecks? Now, folks, they need flexibility when their previous just-so stories that were being peddled as science get pummeled. They can just pivot and say, see, science correcting itself. That's the game with that one. Simple as that. It's a train wreck. This is prevalent these days. Science never proves things. Number one, as we've touched on previously, it's a reification fallacy because science isn't an entity. It doesn't take action or have volition. It's a method, the scientific method. Scientific proof. So science doesn't prove things. All right. Kristen McClellan, The Nature of Science and the Scientific Method. Experiment. Once the hypothesis has been established, it is time to test it. The process of experimentation is what sets science apart from other disciplines. It leads to discoveries every day. An experiment is designed to prove or disprove the hypothesis. If your prediction is correct, you will not be able to reject the hypothesis. From the grand poobah of geneticists, the geneticist of geneticists, Dr. Craig Venter. You know, there are some things we can do in science in terms of proving certain things in life we discover. Yeah, duh. Proof is evidence. Evidence is proof. From Merriam-Webster, evidence, an outward sign, indication, something that furnishes proof. From Oxford dictionaries, right out of the gate, proof, evidence. Or argument establishing a fact or truth of a statement from Collins Dictionary, prove. The first one out of the gate, number one, to test by experiment, prove. A standard. Proof synonyms, confirmation, evidence, validation. Let's take a look at that with scientific theories from the University of Rochester Physics Labs. A scientific theory represents a hypothesis or group of related hypotheses which has been confirmed, proved through repeated experimental tests. From their alma mater wiki, an experiment is a procedure carried out to support, refute, or validate a hypothesis, prove a hypothesis. Ergo, experiments prove or disprove hypotheses. Here comes the cowbell. Scientists using the scientific method have proven water boils at 212 degrees Fahrenheit, 100 degrees Celsius at sea level. That's 1 atmosphere of pressure, 101.325 kilopascals, or 14.7 psi. Number 2, combustion is a result of oxidation reactions. Number 3, information is only caused by intelligent agency. Number 4, lack of insulin with type 1 diabetes patients results in diabetic ketoacidosis. Number 5, lack of vitamin C intake in humans results in scurvy. Number 6, knowledge or the existence of the witch path information collapses the wave function. Number 7, the rapid motion and collisions of molecules with the walls of the container causes gas pressure. Magnetism is caused by the motion of electric charge. 9, the Coriolis effect is caused by 2 differing frames of reference, one rotating coordinate system, non-inertial, and one non-rotating coordinate system, inertial. 10, gluconeogenesis results in the production of glucose from specific non-carbohydrate precursors. These are absolutely true, proven, inviolable, never to be falsified because they were proven by experiment. That's why. I can go on for months. That's just 10. And science is self-correcting. Here again, science doesn't have a self, right? Reification fallacy. The poster child and undisputed champion of the world for this one, evolution, because this one's been getting corrected ever since the words came out of the friggin' biology philosopher of Honeycreeper Beak's mouth, right? The poster child here is Punctuated Equilibrium, brought to you by Stephen Jay Gould and Niles Eldredge. Dr. Niles Eldredge, he's the curator of invertebrate paleontology at the American Museum of Natural History. They say in the myths of human evolution, Darwin's prediction of rampant, albeit gradual, change affecting all lineages through time is refuted. The record is there, and the record speaks for tremendous anatomical conservatism. Change in the manner Darwin expected is just not found in the fossil record. So I don't know how you actually refute pseudoscience, but Dr. Niles Eldredge did right here. Right? It's refuted. So he and his buddy, Stephen Jay Gould, all ad hoc hypothesis like conjured punctuated equilibrium. The hypothesis, that's not a hypothesis, by the way, that evolutionary development, evolutionary whatever that is marked by isolated episodes of rapid speciation, that's a convention, man-made, between long periods of little or no change. So this is non-change change, punctuated equilibrium. What's this? Well, it's called an ad hoc hypothesis. From skeptic.com, an ad hoc hypothesis is one created to explain away facts that seem to refute one's belief or theory. Ad hoc hypotheses are common in paranormal research and in the work of pseudoscientists. We just saw a couple up here. Dr. Niles Eldredge, Stephen Jay Gould, this textbook example of ad hoc hypotheses. Created to save a friggin' pseudoscience theory. From their alma mater wiki, an ad hoc hypothesis is a hypothesis added to a theory in order to save it from being falsified. Right? This is ridiculous anyway, because you have to have validation for it to be a theory in the first place. So this is convoluted, jarbled nonsense. This is a joke, folks. Science is always changing. It's evolving. Really? So these scientific proofs always change? The 10 I listed above? Have they been changing? You wouldn't think so. Pseudoscience just so stories always change via ad hoc hypotheses, like I just showed you, because they were never scientifically validated to begin with. That's why they're changing. Truth doesn't change. Facts do not change. Period. End of story. Let's take some comments and questions with that.
Shout out to M for the £10 super chat as we hear you, QE. Also, hello to the Adam Meakin, the Ballbuster. Hey, Adam.
Evening, guys. Sorry, I'm a bit late. Still running a bit behind from holiday. Been dog proofing the garden, Nathan. Hopefully, might be getting a rescue dog. So I'm running a bit late. Tea was late, and I just caught that last bit. So
seize him.
Terrible, isn't it?
You back in England, Adam?
Back in the UK, unquarantined. All good.
How was your Italian parole officer? Was he cool?
It was good. Oh, mate, I did get a bit spicy. Leaving, and we were just walked in the airport, and then cop was looking at me with the kids. Straight over, can I have your passports? This is before I've even got 2 passport control. I think, oh dear, and I'm in Rome again. But no, it was just some random lucky dip check. So yeah, and it was a lovely time. Really recharged the battery.
Yeah. Forgery pass muster. Then I'll let M know.
Yeah, we're all good, mate. Yeah,
we'll let M know. I did travel as M Scott Beach, so it did work.
A spaceman.
Straight through. No. Just if I carry on that bit, I'm probably hopefully not out of speech, but the always changing bit. That's something that is bandied about. Yeah, you know, new science will disprove another, and fundamentally, that's something that was about, and I've seen and think cited when I first joined this movement, talking with the guys in Iron Realm, you know, early days. No, it doesn't. And it's not until you do get that slap of a reminder of the strength and validity of the method, and that this stuff I've been reading away whilst on holiday, and it puts it in a much more PC sort of terminology. Concerns with non-repeatable science, I think, is the way it was. But one set of results does not prove anything. Fundamentally, repetition, and this is something that's being stated, like I say, it as a concern with some of the things that are coming out. The one they might have stated was a gravity wave. Most fundamentally, we have one. I think, maybe think of another, the old Venus rebound. That's probably a greater example of even hunting for your own results or trying to kid yourself. But this one of the most fundamental components is its repeatability. If you can repeat it and show it and show it and show it, then that's the experiment, and that then won't be disproved. Water is not going to boil at a different temperature at sea level. Fact, scientific fact.
People hijack that aspect, Adam. They'll take what you've just said in isolation, which was factually accurate, and you even used the word experiment in your explanation. The aspect of repeatability, if you take the debate about the Earth curve, for example, if you can replicate a photograph of something in the distance, that makes it valid scientifically. Well, that will be asserted, or will have been asserted at some stage by someone, I absolutely assure you. But the repeatability, as you correctly identified, is merely the repeatability of the experiment to demonstrate the established cause of the effect you postulated when you formed the hypothesis prior to doing the experiment. It's just the repetition of the actualization of a hypothesis that needs to be repeatable. Only that very small, very detailed, very specific aspect of it. That's it. That's the only aspect. And people will take that one little aspect and say, well, I've repeated this observation. Therefore science, right? No.
repetition specifically of the experiment, and that is the. I said the critique that I'd noticed. I'll dig the article out. But it was something quite current, and that's a critique within the establishment itself. You know, that we're trawling through stuff that is being purported as science. They didn't use the word pseudoscience. It's like I said, it was non-repeatable science, which is the bit that stuck in my mind as John was going through that, and it is crucial, and that's the purpose of the method. The method is to set that experiment, you know, so it is repeatable wherever you are, whatever you're doing. You can do it again and again and again, and that is what gives it its validity. Not, as you say, oh look, I can see that from this distance, and it appears to be obscured every day.
I remember talking to Dr. John Dee about this, and when he was detailing this, he was saying, well, it's actually quite tedious, and it didn't seem like science. And what he's actually describing to me is the process of repetition. It's like, well, all the science has already been done. It's like, well, no, the repeatability aspect, doing it again and again and again, while it might seem tedious, might not seem like, well, if it's already been done once, it's like, no, that's very much a part of the method, having that repeatability. And if you're the one doing it, then you're doing science. There's no two ways about that. The fact that you're one of the people repeating it as opposed to the person who came up with the hypothesis is irrelevant, because the aspect of repeatability is crucial to the method. Wouldn't be there if you could just do it once. Well, then that leaves you open to potentially having cocked up at some point during the apparatus building stage of your experiment, for the sake of argument. You've got to be able to repeat it. You've got to have other people, unbiased, do it. That isn't you. That isn't the person that's formulated the hypothesis. That's the whole point. It's part of the method.
Right. It's the way to actually confirm the hypothesis. And by everybody being able to confirm the hypothesis through the experiment, that makes it legitimate.
It's an aspect of the empiricism, correct?
So I like the point you brought up, Nathan. Everyone screws that up with the observation. Remember, it's empirical. That means observable, testable, repeatable, falsifiable. The repeatable part, the operator isn't the observation. The repeatability part, the operator is the testability part. So it's not talking about repeated observation. What are you going to do? Look at something, then close your eyes, then look again? So you just repeated the observation. That is numpty dipshittery, folks. So that always cracks me up when people say, well, they also confuse empirical with just observation. No. Empirical is those four, not just observation. If it was just observation, then it would just be observation, not empirical. Got it?
Just to example that for any of the audience that aren't following, I doubt there is any based on the straw poll earlier. But nevertheless, we've given an example of boiling water. So Adam detailed the experiment, and I'm not going to repeat it. But if you were to stumble across a hot spring and go, oh, I wonder what causes that bubbling to occur. And then, as Quantum Eraser puts it, you then close your eyes really tight and open them and go, oh, check it out, it's still bubbling. Repeatability or what? No, well, no, what you haven't done is establish the cause. You haven't gone, I wonder if the acid content causes those bubbles to appear. And then you go, right, let's formulate a hypothesis. If high acid content, then boiling water. And null, because you need one of those. If acid content, not boiling water. And then you perform the experiment. You add a load of acid to water and go, nothing's happening. It's not boiling. Maybe I've validated my null empirically. Yeah, you have. You've ruled out the acid content as causing the boiling. There you go. You can strike that off the list. Jobs are good. And you've proved your null. You haven't proved the cause of the boiling, so you need to have another go. There you go. What about heat? Maybe that causes it. So you go, okay, let's formulate a new hypothesis. If heat, then boiling water. I'm not going to detail the controls. Feel free to if you want after QE. Nevertheless, you've also got to know if heat, not boiling water. So then you do your experiment, you apply your heat and watch it boil and go, wow, I've validated my cause of this effect that I observed. I didn't just close my eyes and watch it boil again. Yeah, I actually had to go through the method. But at that point, you then still definitely need other people to come along and go, "Are you sure? Let's just run that again. Let's just vary the heat and see if it causes the water to boil." Oh, it does. Well, that's been validated again and again and again and again. So it's empirical, not blinking and watching the water boil again and saying acid caused that. I've got a hypothesis. Therefore, my hypothesis of if acid, well, that's not if anymore. It's just acid causes boiling because it's science, right? A hypothesis on its own is science. So my if is no longer if. It's just my story that acid caused that, and I'll perpetuate that because guess what? I've been through peer review, so you better accept what I tell you. Acid causes water to boil. I've got a just so story, which I'll call a hypothesis, and I'm science.
Yep. We're gonna go through one. How ironic! We're gonna go through one of those. What you just did. It's not water boiling here in a few minutes. So how ironic! And he didn't even know.
I'll save my pad on that then, John. Is this?
All right, we ready to roll?
Did you want to add something, Adam? Did you say?
No, I was gonna, but if John's gonna reiterate me, I'll save it for later. Let's roll and then going back. It's just more of an addition in terms of.
Yeah, we're gonna get to a shining example of what he just went through, just with another subject. But yes, he's all over it. So let's go with theories for right now. The colloquial use of theory. Theory from the dictionary.com, a mere conjecture or a guess. When we say theory in this genre, that's not what we're talking about. We are talking about scientific theories. The end result, the entire goal of the scientific method is to reach a scientific theory. Well, what is that? Well, from Chemistry About, a scientific theory summarizes a hypothesis or group of hypotheses that have been supported with repeated testing. From Quirks to Quasars, a scientific theory consists of one or more hypotheses that have been supported with repeated testing. From the University of Rochester Physics Labs, a scientific theory represents a hypothesis or group of related hypotheses which has been confirmed, proved through repeated experimental tests. That's what a scientific theory is. Nothing else. If you don't have experimental tests validating it, then it's your colloquial theory. And that gets abused every single day. You can't have an actual scientific theory without it already being validated or confirmed by experiment. That is hypothesis tested. And you can't have math or equations in a flippant scientific theory. For goodness sakes, we're talking about qualitative, not quantitative here. It's either the cause of the effect or it's not qualitative. This is a good one. People screw this up all the time. A lot of flat earthers do too. Listen up. Logic in the scientific method. Scientific method is conducting using two and only two forms of logic. They are abductive and deductive, not inductive. As evidenced by, here comes some more cowbell for you. From explorable.com, their research organization, abductive reasoning. A number of facts from a multitude of sources. Listen to this closely, folks. Abductive reasoning. A number of facts from a multitude of sources, such as literature reviews. Uh-oh, where'd we hear that before? And general observations. Uh-oh, are gathered together. After an assessment of this information, the most likely, hypothesis to explain the observations is adopted as the starting point of research. Abduction is seen very much as the starting point of the research process, giving a rational explanation, allowing, here comes the second one, deductive reasoning to dictate the exact experimental design. You see the scientific method in this statement right here, the whole thing. So abductive reasoning is employed to establish what? Observations, literature reviews, hypotheses. Right? Observations, literature reviews, hypotheses. We've seen those before. then deductive reasoning is more narrow and is generally used to test or confirm hypotheses. Right? Number 4, experiment. That's what it is. So we got observations, literature reviews, hypotheses, and experiments. What a shock. The scientific method that I've been posting for 4.5 years is what? Well, a lot longer than that, just on this venue. Observe a phenomena, literature review, construct a hypothesis, test an experiment. There they are. You see how it flows? So, abduction. No conclusions are drawn. Observing phenomena, literature reviews, educated guesses, i.e., hypothesis construction. Deduction. General to specific leads to certainty. Experiment. All A or B, all C or A, therefore all C must be B. And then we have the redheaded stepchild. Induction. Specific to general, leads to probability or likelihood. Most A or B, and this C is A, therefore this C is likely B. This, folks, right here, is not science at all. And identified by Karl Popper, the problem with induction. Has anyone heard that phrase before? Guess what he uses as his flagship example for the problem of induction? Any guesses?
Is that an open question? Because how you described it so far really sounds to me very familiar. It seems like everything that has to do with presupposition.
Nope. Problem
Nope.
of induction. His flagship, his champion leading out of the gate. I'll just let it fly. No pun intended. All swans are white. That is the problem with induction. From Lumen Learning, the difference between abductive reasoning and inductive reasoning is a subtle one. Both use evidence to form guesses that are likely, but not guaranteed to be true. However, abductive reasoning looks for what? Cause and effect relationships, while induction seeks to determine general rules. So abduction is solely focused on cause and effect. Well, where did we hear about that before? Well, because that's what a scientific hypothesis is. It's based on cause and effect reasoning. From Lowell C., Cambridge, a scientific hypothesis does not merely state X and Y may be related, but explains why they are related. From Drexel University, a scientific method is hypothesis-driven. One makes an educated guess to explain a what? Cause and effect relationship. From Amberine Helmutstein, Biomedical Sciences, a hypothesis is an educated guess based on observation. It's a prediction of what? Cause and effect. And from one of the chief pseudoscientists that can talk the talk but can't walk the walk, from Nature.com, California Institute of Technology physicist Sean Carroll, arguing in The Edge that hypotheses aren't simply useful tools in some potentially outmoded vision of science. They're the whole point. So, abductive, causation, hypothesis construction, deductive, experimentation. This is science, folks. That's the logic of the scientific method, as opposed to inductive, which is correlative, probability, and likelihood. And remember, correlation does not equal causation. Ergo, this is pseudoscience. Get it? Hopefully you got it. Here's one game the pseudoscience priests are playing. And this goes back to what Nathan was saying before. This is the example that I had for many years now. So, example. Observe a phenomena. Sailors appear crippled. They have bleeding gums, tooth loss, have poor wound healing after long sea journeys back in the day. Well, plausible causes. That is, plausible independent variables. Number 1, prolonged exposure to seawater. Number 2, inhalation of aerosolized seagull droppings. Prolonged exposure to swabbing the dick cleaning solution. Number 4, prolonged rolling and pitching of the ship. Number 5, poor air quality, especially below deck, caused by smoke from candles and tobacco, mold, mildew, vapors from tar and waste in the bilges, and hydrogen and carbonic acid gases from the ventilation systems. Those are just some independent or variables, possible independent variables. What about what we don't know? Ever thought of that? So what do? Do we do A? Do we pull a bevy of current scientists and roll with what most think it is? Then call it science? Or do we B? Do we test every possible cause, read independent variable, and validate the effect, dependent variable, or your prediction? That's science. Today's science, which is religion, that is paleontology, anthropology, archaeology, geology, evolutionary biology, whatever that is, and yes, I'm still laughing, theoretical physics, non-experimental, astrophysics, astronomy, and cosmology. What do? They roll with the poll, A, because they are unable to validate or confirm anything by experiment. Then they say, what's the problem? What's the problem with that? Since transistors work, therefore spinning balls, multiverses, dark matter, evolution, whatever that is, yes, I'm still laughing, big bangs, billions of years ad nauseum are scientific facts. That's what they do. This is the game. What in the world? Wake up! Scientific predictions. This last sections are not Gene Dixon, Edgar Casey, Jimmy the Greek, Mystic Meg, Nostradamus, or Carnival Tent predictions. Right? They're equivocating with the term. I stop them in their tracks every time when I hear that term. You know I do. Back to Anne-Marie Helmstein from ThoughtCo. Words have precise meanings in science. Duh. From Colorado State. Scientific hypotheses, a special kind of prediction that forecasts how the independent variable will affect the dependent variable. From Penn State, the scientist applies his or her present knowledge to predict the effect of the independent variable on the dependent variable. The prediction is a statement of the expected results of the experiment based on what? The hypothesis. The prediction is often an if and then statement. It doesn't have to be an if and then, but it is often if and then. So, to have a scientific prediction, not a Mystic Meg, Nostradamus, or Jimmy the Greek prediction, you must have, number 1, an independent variable, and number 2, a dependent variable. In other words, a viable scientific hypothesis. Any questions, comments, and concerns? That finishes the presentation for today.
Sorry? Yeah, I just want to say I'm not entirely sure how my, I guess, correlative view, how the presupposition doesn't tie in with induction, because it very much seems in that field. It's the same kind of motion, the same move that they make. Just a generalization. It has to be because of these correlations. So isn't presuppositional reasoning routed within an induction?
No, not all of it.
It's
Not all of it.
It's a supposition. The hypothesis is a supposition. But go ahead, Nathan, go ahead.
I was saying the same thing. I was saying it's a supposition. Supposition of cause. Earlier in the presentation, when QE's saying you want to exhaust every single possible cause, well, I can't remember who it was that spurred this particular conversation, but your methodology leaves you proving something at the end of every single validated experiment. So once you've actually gone through the process, you're going to prove your null or prove your alternative hypothesis at the end of that process. So your supposition of cause isn't necessarily a supposition of cause at all, because you've got the antithesis of your supposition in the null. One of them's going to get proven at the end of the process.
Yes, you forgot the end of the process, Arwen, because it's a presupposition. It's presupposed or your presumed cause in the hypothesis, but that's going to get resolved in the experiment.
If you think,
I want to apologize because you guys are taking my statement way too integral into the specific conversation about the scientific method. It was just a general assertion. Not about to say, look, presuppositions are just outside of the scientific method, obviously. So, but valid statements nonetheless. Thank you.
No, they're not outside because in the hypothesis you have what you could call a presupposition. The
Okay.
independent variables.
No, I don't like that. No, the hypothesis is a supposition.
It is
yet to be validated.
That's correct.
Yeah, so it's not a presupposition. A presupposition would be to use it and then assert it with a story normally. But if it's just a supposition yet to be validated.
That's true.
Right. So I'm technically incorrect. I just typically felt, I guess, that induction is typically what leads the ballers. What keeps them going. Just a couple of correlations, and then they just presuppose it has to be because it matches.
You're talking about science in quotes.
Right, exactly. So yeah, I
Induction is
understand.
to induce, isn't it? So
Again,
if you're going inductive, you're inducing. That is derivative, isn't it? You're inducing something. You're not necessarily proving. You're inducing a conclusion. You're forcing it into it because of specific observation. That leads you to a conclusion, doesn't it? You're inducing that. It's not necessarily been deduced.
Right. At
So
which
like
point
I think John said, all swans are white. You might see loads and loads of white swans, lead you to the inductive reason that all swans are white. You've induced it, is the way I've always.
Once you use it to make a conclusory statement, then you can call it a presupposition.
That's why. And I ramble. I don't know what I'm going to say, but it's like I've used the word philosophy before with regards to the scientific method, and I think the greatest philosophers developed the way in which mankind can use the scientific method. And what John's breakdown for me just kind of confirmed it's a requirement from your abductive reasoning, which is by no other reason you have to have a divine spark, something that is sentient, to apply abductive. It doesn't do anything of itself. It comes from within, for me, the abductive part, while you have genius. Then the method allows that fantastic abductive reasoning to be tested through the deductive reason and the empirical nature of the scientific method. And then you come to conclusion. Inductiveness is just weak, but for me, that's how I've always viewed the method, because it requires the mundane, the deductive, but also the something special to get abductive. Abductive doesn't come from nowhere. It requires a spark from something. For me,
Right.
It's
In other words, the point at which you have the if gumption's the right word, to inquire in the first instance why the water's boiling, that requires, you're saying, some sort of, if you're saying divine sentience or what you're saying, but you're saying that needs a spark, I think was the word you used. At that point, you're like, I wonder what causes that. And then you've obviously got what you call genius in terms of actually guessing it and guessing it right once you validated that you have actually guessed right. But the supposition is exactly that, right? It's a guess. But at some point, somebody has got to guess right to then validate that it is right. And that is what you're describing as genius, correct?
Yeah, that's well, that's to me the spark of the creator. That's the side that shows we're not a machine. A machine can do the deductive bit, but it could never come up with the putting the partial facts previous facts that are known to come up with and conjure up with the abductive, to investigate and use your deductive reasoning to then validate your abductive.
Yeah, but that's where it's a dangerous line, isn't it? Because if you are that guy and you've got all of that spark going on while you're coming to the reasonable conclusion that something might cause something else, well, at that point, then there's just the awkward bit of actually validating it, right? Well, if all the preceding stuff seems really legit, wouldn't it be much easier to send it off to a dude and just get him to put a few ticks and a few highlighter marks on it? Wouldn't that be much easier?
Oh, shit. Yeah, you make a really good point there. Yeah.
Another
But then
one.
that's the validity of the method, isn't it? And what we're saying, that's what all of those parts that come together, it requires the repetition. You know what I mean? That for it to have, for that beautiful bit of abduction to have any real validity.
Yeah, screw all of that. I'm just down with sending it off to some dude.
Well,
Hey, remember,
that's what I was saying earlier. Non-repeatable
what I
site
used to
tricking
do.
abduction is what we have a lot of, don't we? Very well dressed abduction.
yeah, I'd like to
That's
step. I'd like to.
talks
I'd
about
like to
how
step
you
in
do
for
your-
with. Hold on a second. I'd like to step in.
Okay.
Remember, a genius is just one who has a great idea, man, but has the common sense to keep quiet about his other 1,000 insane thoughts.
That's a good way of putting it. And Adam is so kind, right? I don't know if these people are his brethren, the potential people that might suffer as a result of this information, if it wasn't just impalpable background noise, as Kiwi puts it. But nevertheless, you're just so kind in your phraseology. We're just pummeling them. They're pseudoscientists. They're frauds. And you're like, I can't remember how eloquently you put it earlier when you were like non-science science. How did you put it? It's very kindly.
Non-repeatable science. That wasn't my word. That's them sharing their pain, Nathan. You know. Non-repeatable.
Too
Adam,
kind,
he's
Adam,
such a
just too
sweetie, man.
So if it's non-repeatable, does that mean it's unique science?
Oh,
It
but
is
beautifully
not
put, Owen.
Adam Minkin's a gentleman.
Very kind.
He's quite quaffable.
I'm quaffing a little Pinot Grigio right now. A little, just last few tastes of Italy.
Yeah. A lot of good information in these presentations. I like the genius one. I remember that from a long time ago. So we want Nathan. We want to run through some people in here, see their in case they have any thoughts. This is BALLBUSTERS. I forgot to tell everyone. If you look in the info box below the video, this is a BALLBUSTERS. Anyone can join. There is a link in the description box for this hangout. Come in and join and share any concerns, questions, comments. As long as you remain civil about it, we're good to go. If you don't remain civil, I'll boot your butt out of here. So, Nathan, do you want to go through those? You're more than happy to.
Sure. Brian, hey, how you doing?
Hey everybody, can you hear me okay?
We do. Good to have you. Any comments on the presentation specifically about science, peer review, any of that?
Yeah. Well, what I have to say is probably a little bit out of date because it's more focused on the start of the presentation. But when I first heard about scientific method, it was in 2016 when QE first done a presentation. I think it was a Thursday evening. You had QE on the show, Nathan, to do a presentation. I had heard QE before that with Robert Bassano and some other people who I can't remember who on YouTube. But I heard him on the show with you, and that was the first time I heard the scientific method. Now, since then, since 4 years ago, I've learned about it and learned what it was thanks to QE, thanks to yourself, because listening to the show, me and many other people have heard you speak about it. QE wasn't there, and you knew it, and then Anthony and Arwen and everyone else picked it up. Now, what I have to say about it is, in my 5 years since I became Flat Earth in 2015, in all those 5 years, I've had ballers ask me for peer review to back up things I've been saying or anything I might present. They're looking for peer review all the time in 5 years. Not once. It just occurred to me earlier. Not in once in 5 years has any baller ever looked for anything or mentioned anything, any evidence concerning or mentioned ever the scientific method. Not once. Years. And I'm on YouTube a lot, commenting a lot, not once. That says a lot.
Well, I can make a statement to that effect, Brian. So, fact, there is no scientific evidence for the heliocentric worldview. Zero, nada, none. There isn't any. Not only that, question of whether or not Earth is a sphere is not even open to scientific inquiry.
What a surprise.
Yep, considering they told us the whole body of science. Is there anything else, Brian? Anything else?
Oh, no, that's it. I tried to. Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Cool. I'm in the same boat as you. Although I was taught in school what the scientific method was, I was using, as I said in the show earlier, the colloquial terminology for what most people think science is, until QE pointed out that that isn't what science actually is. So over to Neil. How you doing, Neil?
Sorry.
Go on, Brian.
Just add to what you summarised there, what Brian was saying. I wouldn't put it as bold a statement as that. I think academia would deny that level of closure. What they probably would have to admit is that if you were to try and do some research into the nature of the Earth, and which was outside of the supposition that it's not a ball, it'd be sod all chance of you getting any funding. Is the reality. It wouldn't be closed to you. As you can see, the only way is
Hold on. What would be the phenomena you could possibly study?
In any, I didn't say science. I said academia, didn't I? Because I was.
I didn't catch that. Sorry, my bad. I'll lay off.
Yeah. I think the point being that it's more that they wouldn't admit that they wouldn't allow any investigation into this. It's just that the reality of academia is everything requires money, and if you look at Riley's thing, it had to be funded. You know what I mean? Novel stuff that challenges anything doesn't get supported. The establishment supports itself, hence the app for Fed.
Fair enough.
And if you want to investigate the redshift on something 18 quadrillion miles away, you'll get some money. If you live in that paradigm that you're saying, I'm going to investigate something that's 18 quadrillion miles away, it's living in what they want you to do.
Indeedy. Translatable to lots of other things, including music. Won't get into that. Neil.
We can't look at anything 18 gazillion miles away and make predictions on it.
A scientific prediction.
It's not a real number.
Sorry about that.
Just because it's on topic, Neil. So if you say the word prediction and contextually you're talking about science, which we are, this is Master of Science presentation part 3, then contextually it's a test is an experiment, an actualization of a hypothesis. Contextually, that's what a test is if you're talking science.
I had some guy saying it the other day, so.
It's just noteworthy because people will often use that word as well. You know, they'll give you the idea of science. They'll maybe even use a few sciencey words like hypothesis, not that they'll necessarily have one when we're talking heliocentrism. Then they'll invoke the word test to imply that it's been tested, and that would mean an experiment.
I hope Fight the Flat Earth is listening. I doubt it. That's all I got. I came in late, and I'm having a problem with my Wi-Fi.
Tell her she's a very lovely lady. Oh, Wi-Fi.
What? That's what I thought he was going to say, wife, but he said Wi-Fi. Too funny, man.
Shout out to M for hitting the super chat. just sends money. Thank you very much. Right, who's up next? Skeptical. Let's just take you off mute. Give me a second. Sorry. Ed.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, what's up, guys? Just as usual, brilliant presentation. Yeah. I have nothing to add, really. Yeah.
Fine. That's fine. Thank you very much for being here, Skeptical. Travis, how you doing?
Hey, doing well. How are you guys?
Cool. It's very quiet on the Western Front.
Yeah, I'm on the Western Front here. Washington State, yep. So, yeah, I got to say it's outstanding. Definitely fit for a part 3. Plenty of citations. Some would argue too many who don't agree with you, but could you just, if you could, John, go over that point again, or who that person was that was speaking in front of a bunch of colleagues, asking them if they disagree with what he said? Over.
Yes, number one, this isn't an agree or disagree topic. It's either black or white, yes or no, 1 or 0. So disagree is kind of non sequitur to these presentations on science. They just are what they are, and they is what they is. The one from Caltech, from the one that discussed the crisis of peer review, that's Goodstein D, as in Delta, Conduct and Misconduct in Science, Caltech 2002.
Thank you. Hey, okay, you did get there in the end. All right, excellent. Yeah, thank you. I just came in and caught the last half of that, and so I just wanted to make sure. Yeah, that was he's basically talking about the culpability, right?
Well, yeah, and the process a bit. You know, shining a light on a little bit of the process, which is prone to corruption, right? And whenever you have a process with humans that are prone to corruption, it's going to get corrupted. But anyway, we're talking, like I said, people focus on peer review. They shouldn't be. Peer review is subjective, right? We're in the business of objectivity, the opposite of subjective. So this is almost like religion, right? Because you have a whole bunch of priests up there they have a barrier of entry. They put a barrier up that you have to cross, and it's based on their outlook or what they think. That's not objective. That's the whole problem of peer review in this sense.
I think the misconception sometimes, John, is that peer review is misunderstood for repeatability, or it has been repeated. And it's often assumed to be so, and it's nothing of the sort. Often it's just checking the numbers and seeing if there's anything outstandingly obvious wrong. And you know, that's what peer review is nowadays, checking the maths fundamentally, isn't it? It's not say repeatability of the experiment.
No, they sit there with highlighters. But a lot of people think that because, again, they are clueless about which they are talking about, which is a shocking surprise. Yeah.
You said that out of all the journals, or was that journals, or was that peer review at less than 1% followed the scientific method?
That's correct.
Over.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, you don't need the fine professor from the University of Pennsylvania to tell you that. All you have to do, you could just take a week or a month or 6 months, and then every few days pick like 50 of them, go into Google Scholar and just randomly pick, right? And then use your search function and type in independent variable, dependent variable, hypothesis, and experiment, and you tell me. You could do this on your own.
Yeah, just word search.
That's why I said at the beginning of each study, it should have those 3 steps listed right above the abstract. That would make it so easy. But then again, you wouldn't have any studies in those databases. That's why they don't do it. They just use science, the term science, to grease the skids. It's just a linguistics game. That's it. Well, that's science. It came from a scientific journal. What's your problem? It's science, man. All right? That's it. It's just a linguistic linguistic gymnastics. It's not even gymnastics. They just, by fiat, say science. Science. Nope. I don't think so, son.
Yeah, just like the science, same science that uses independent variables, time.
Yeah, that's just preposterous. That's just people wiki Google searching. You know, just because people say, and you have citations saying, time is always the independent variable, doesn't make them right. You have to demonstrate it, right? So put time in a hypothesis, and we'll be laughing at you. Other than a control variable, if you make it the independent variable, you'll be a laughing stock. I've showed that countless times. You're just parroting the headline. Like all headlines, it's usually not the story. So be careful out there.
Yeah, they love their concepts and they like to ascribe actions to them.
Yes, they do, don't they?
Shame on them. Okay, I have one last thing here regarding the boiling water. Water boils at 212 degrees Fahrenheit or approximately 100 degrees Celsius at sea level. But in Denver, Colorado, it's like 10 degrees less in Fahrenheit, or somewhere around 202.
Yeah, that's not that's not the full hypothesis though, because whenever you're talking about boiling point and freezing points with anything, it's always attached by the lips to pressure.
I agree.
So
I was just pointing that out.
Yeah,
you guys specified sea level for a reason.
I specified sea level and 1 atmosphere pressure, or 101.325 kilopascals, or 14.7 psi. In a hypothesis, you usually don't have to do that. This is a special case, like I said, because whenever you're talking about boiling points and freezing points, like I just said, you have to put the control variables in there, making it more or less part of the experiment rather than the hypothesis. But it's good to go. I mean, that's just...
I always remember, John, being forced to write STP or RTP after all of those kind of things.
Yeah.
And titrating and doing the mundane STP, RTP, you know what I mean? Getting slapped if you didn't. So, yeah, it is a prerequisite that often is assumed, but it's one of those things that the ballers will use to wiggle on unless you did state it. So it is a just on the kind of boiling point. So, when you look at Nathan saying, "Oh, this is boiling. Why is it boiling at a different temperature?" The boringness of it is not to go, "Oh, look, I've added a bit of salt. It boils at a different temperature or freezes at a different temperature." You then go on repeatedly within that before you formulate anything with graduation tables, doing with an extra mole here, an extra mole there, and measuring the temperature difference.
Sure.
Proper science is very repetitive, requires not just, just like with Riley's egg in a jar. If you were going to prove that science, there'd be a bit of salt, salinity, the different salinities, it will go on and on and on. And that's the reality of when you do prove things scientifically, or to put simply, you don't just leave a diabetic without sugar. It's a long, hard road of empiricism, which is one of that's probably undone, actually, not understated what that empiricism implies and the level of validation it does give.
Yes, sir.
Oh, that may go science. Sorry.
Go science. Yeah. hey, we're looking good. It looks like Nathan, you got all through everyone. I'm pretty surprised there's not more people in here challenging this. It's probably because they've wisened up over the years. But some still step in it. Their pride gets in the way. It gets in the way of their alleged education. So We filled the almost 2 hour mark. I love finishing up before 2 hours. So if we can get the BALLBUSTERS final thoughts, any channel shout outs, and then we'll close up shop.
Arwin, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I have a good explanation for why not
Make it
a lot
short.
of yeah. Why not a lot of ballers are coming in? But probably because some of them might have had actual studies, but that's like probably a long time ago. Looking at the average age of the tenacious baller that we actually get to see on camera and all that. So yeah, it's been a long time. They got used to pseudoscience, going with that. So it all just kind of withered away. If you don't train a skill, if you don't train an insight, it slips on you. So they can't handle this anymore.
Mhm.
That was it. Oh yeah, Arwin channel, ARWIJN. I have a daily show, Flat Earth Early Bird, 2 p.m. Amsterdam time every day. See you there.
Proper plug for Arwin, so ARWIJN, Arwin, Early Bird. Check it out, daily show. Adam, there?
Okay.
Do the quick plugs, obviously. Shout out to Iron Realm. Friday evenings, I think Josh is back next week. Might be popping in as well. And then the guys obviously on Ironworks on TFR and YouTube on Tuesdays and Fridays at 10 UK. Just one last little bit. I was talking about abductive reasoning. And inductive and deductive, they're obvious where they come from. Abduct is to take. It says illegally or by force, or by deception, but I mean, if you abduct something, you take it from somewhere, and that's the point I was making. Where are you taking that abductive reasoning from?
Was that rhetorical? It's inspirational.
Yeah, it's just a final thought, Nathan. If anything, in the old radio style.
Did you abduct?
No, I'd like to answer it, even though you've left it as a rhetorical cliffhanger, because that's your genius, isn't it? That's where you see odd in inspiration, right?
No, he's abducted. You got something in your shed.
Yeah, there've been mushrooms growing in there while I've been away.
Hey, notice he didn't answer the question you asked.
Yes.
Someone.
Yes, I'm gonna leave him off the hook.
I'm sure he hasn't abducted anybody. It's just mushrooms.
All right, Nathan, take us home, sir.
Well, I'll do a plug for me. Why not? So, Be Here or Be Sphere or Flat Earth Debate, Uncut and After Show on my second channel, which is going out at 9 p.m. Although, if I can't drag this plug out for myself long enough, I'll start it just before 9 when this show rounds out properly. So, Be Here or Be Sphere, that's Nathan Oakley channel, and Flat Earth Debate, Uncut and After Show. It's show 1, 2, 3, 4. Check it out. I'll be in the chat chatting away with you if you do go and toddle along to that show. Another plug for Iron Realm Media and QE himself. So QE, thank you very much for another excellent presentation on science. And although I'm not privy to the presentations before they go out, I've heard it before, and I'm sure a lot of the audience have heard this before as well. But that doesn't matter, because there's going to be certain aspects of what's been said here today that some people won't have raised an eyebrow to, or were paying attention to the chat when the presentation was done previously, or there's going to be an aspect that's just been reiterated enough for you to actually think, that's useful to apply elsewhere. I gave an example. Again, I'm not going to detail the specifics of the current events that are going on that have this very specifically applicable to them. If you know what I'm talking about, you'll know how it's applicable, and it will relieve you of a lot of fear. So that's a useful aspect in terms of glass half full, rather than we're only fairly palpable background noise. I don't necessarily see it that way. So, this is useful information to those of you who are watching, and take it for what it is, because in the current climate, it's going to relieve you of a lot of fear if you understand this information for what it is. So, take that as what it that for what it is. And another massive thank you to everybody who's joined us live in QE's show, or if you're watching this on the re-up on the Nathan Oakley 1980 channel, thank you for watching in the premiering stream. Thank you to everyone who smashed the super chat. And yeah, that's it. Hopefully QE will give you a last couple of words. I will spam the chat with the link to Flat Earth Debate Uncut and After Show number 1, 2, 3, 4. And yeah, over to you, QE. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Hey, guys, I hope you got a lot out of this. And remember, the only thing for certain is the unforeseen.